Hi everybody, I'm Stacy with Stacy's Organizing and Decorating for Life. I'm here to help you organize your thoughts and decorate your perspectives. So today we're going to talk about the things that our mind makes up and the power of the paradoxes and the polarities and how they affect our mind, body, and soul, but even transfer more so into our selves, cells, and to our souls, which is our energy field, our consciousness. So if you like that's our topic today, please hit the like and subscribe button below. But before we get started, I want to thank you all that follow me and watch my videos weekly. I want you to know that I love and appreciate you very much. And for those of you who are new to this channel, I want you to know that I'm not a doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist, a scientist, any of those things, but I love those things. And we're going to share on that somewhat today. What I am is a life coach, and I have a webpage called stacyforlife.com. And on this webpage, I write a monthly blog, and I invite you to check that out. But also there's a description of the services that I provide as a life coach dealing with addiction, codependency, and grief, but not exclusively to those things. Because underneath those things lies a desire for healing and healthy relationships, as well as development of spiritual and soul consciousness. So it's about going within to feel comfortable in your own skin. So if you or anyone you know need help in any of those areas, please feel free to to look me up, stacyforlife.com. Also, stacyronick@gmail.com. You can reach me there. You can find me on social media. Facebook, Stacy Renee is my personal page, and Stacy's Organizing and Decorating for Life is my business page. You can find me on Twitter at Stacy Renee. You can find me at Stacy_Renee for Life on Instagram. So feel free to follow me on any of those and reach out to me on those as well. So let's get started because I got a lot of information to give to you. That's why I'm talking fast, because I've recorded this video over and over and over trying to get it in a certain time frame, and I don't know how to edit, and so I haven't been able to do it. So here we go. We're going to talk about how this affects us, mind, body, and soul, how the things that our mind makes up. And the things that our mind makes up comes from our past, our childhood experiences, our religious experiences, and all of these is how our development goes, as we grow older and everything. And some of the things that we thought, or that these skills that we picked up in our youth, no longer serve us in our adulthood. And hence when I come to, when I work with people, that's usually what we're working on. So it's these things that our mind makes up, and realizing the power of our mind and our brain and these paradoxes and polarities, and understanding that these polarities in themselves, are something that is part of our connection with the divine intelligence, the cosmic consciousness, everything is divinely connected if we choose to see it so. When we think things are happening to us, but when we realize we are connected, things are happening through us. So in looking at these divine connections, we don't, leave one thing underturned. That's not to mean that we obsess. We enjoy this adventure of seeing how things are connected. That's what I love as a life coach, is doing that tracking, seeing how it's connected, and helping people find that connection themselves. So looking at the mind, and these polarities, as we have dark and light, day and night, and we have masculine and feminine, and we're going to talk about all those things, and childlike and childish, but we're also going to talk about the black and white, which equals the gray matter that we're going to talk about right now. We're talking about gray matter, and we're talking about how that affects us, with our cerebrospinal nervous system, as well as our autonomic nervous system. And these things reach into our health. So we're talking about our body when we talk about our health, but we also talk about what makes us react. Our brain does that reaction. So not only does it go there, when I say nervous system, this goes down our spinal cords, and everything else. So sometimes the back of our mind, when we say things are in the back of our mind, or when we say something gets on our nerves, these are all true statements, but we don't understand how deeply true they are. Because our nerves, when we say something gets on our nerves, it really is indicative of our healing, because the same thing's going to keep getting on our nerves because it's actually a trigger. But we'll say it gets on my nerves. So why do we want to keep enduring and subjecting ourselves to something getting on our nerves? Is that we don't realize that healing is the answer to that. Same thing when we say it's in the back of my mind. These are memories that we have that we really just react to. So sometimes we react and then we feel bad for reacting, right? And we don't know why we're reacting the way we're reacting, because we haven't done the healing work. So healing is feeling. Oftentimes people will distract themselves, or they think that it's just an easy fix. Oftentimes people will think, I want to get to the other side, and I'm going to pray to get to the other side. So they're expecting this super being outside of themselves to get them to the other side without any work on their part at all, without any reflection to how did we get here. So that's what I love about mysticism, is we study these different things about how did we get here. We have to look at the past to uncover some of the things in the present. So, in accepting that our lives are magic, mystery, and miracles, a lot of people don't accept or acknowledge that. You have to be able to, you have to believe in magic to find it. We talked about last week the boundaries and the magic of having those, and so looking at this gray matter, there's the way, first off, that we behave, and then there's the effect that the behaviors have on our gray matter and how that feeds into our health. First off, the gray matter, the way that it thinks is we have this thing which I call arrogance. I think that that's our human problem, whether you're a Christian or whatever faith that you follow. The Christians, there's the tree of good and evil, the fruit of good and evil, and then there's the yin and the yang, and there's other examples that we could use, but there's always this polarities in these things, right? So, and those polarities, we absorb those, and so we try so hard to just be good, and we don't want to face this other part. And we'd get this duality going on. So there's this actual complex called Dunning-Kruger effect, and it's overly confident, which I would call arrogant. And what this does is the brain tricks people into having this us versus them mentality, which is comparative and competitive, which really doesn't serve us, but it's something that we are kind of programmed to do. We're taught through that childhood programming or that religious programming. I know with my religion, oftentimes they like to throw the word hypocrite around if people didn't behave a certain way. Hence why some people don't even like to hear the word God. But when we get into this soul consciousness, I may say God, but you can call that, the universe, energy, divine intelligence, cosmic consciousness, the source, the all, whatever you choose, Jehovah, whatever you choose. But I may say God, for God's sakes. So anyway, looking at these different things, it feeds into our body, whatever we tell our mind, so the us versus them mentality really doesn't feel good, because often our soul knows that this isn't the way for us to be, that we want to be in that unity, like the nirvana or the Eden or whatever it is, that the place that we've imagined in our head where we're supposed to be, but we're on earth. We're not there. The thing is that we're supposed to create that here through our life lessons, and we forget that. We think that we're supposed to know or should know things that we haven't practiced and developed yet within our soul. And to practice and develop that is to heal and to look at our thoughts and our perspectives and see which are true and which are not true, which is real. Because when we go through that, the speech dialogue, which is with ourselves or other people, is to ask ourselves, is it true? So some of the things we think may not even be true. Is it necessary? Do I need to even be thinking about this? Because we have so many millions of thoughts a day. I can't even remember how many thoughts we have a day, but there's always things processing in our processor here. And is it kind? So we think these things. Even if we're not expressing that outside, we need to remember to channel that inside ourselves. And I'll share a story on that here at the end of this video. But our brains are like our computers, our processors. We have these algorithms, which from our experience from whatever those places, churches or, schools or childhood, whatever, from those experiences that we gather evidence for whatever experience is most painful. And, for most of us, it's the most painful experiences that we learn our lessons from. We don't need to learn a lesson from great experiences, right? But do we want to learn our lessons from the painful experiences? We just don't want to have the painful experiences again, do we? So we build up these skills to not have the painful experiences, which end up biting us in the ass later, or something like that. They end up not serving us. These end up being things that we need to give up and release, and we'll talk about that at the end of this video too. But these things that our mind thinks feeds into these nerve systems, which feeds into the cells and the axioms. It's kind of like the computer feeding the algorithms as we're going to gather evidence. That evidence will keep pushing that into our face, and pushing that into our faces, these algorithms that we have, these things that keep recurring and appearing in our life. If they cause us pain, it's meant for us to heal. Because what do? When you get an owie, you heal. So healing these things is so detriment and important because they'll just keep happening. So if you keep getting pain upon pain and don't heal, what happens? It's a system breakdown. So we talked about how these work with our parasympathetic and sympathetic response systems, and how this happens is that flight, fight, or freeze. Well, in the computer lingo, you keep getting these algorithms thrown at you, and either you're going to, shut down, go into sleep mode because it's going to be overwhelming. So that's, going into your flight mode, or freeze mode, and then, or else you're going to fight, and that's going to be in your crash mode, right? So we can relate that like that, or there's many different ways we can relate it, but it's just going to not be of benefit to us, right? It's not going to work. It's not going to serve us. So how do we get to a place that serves us and that best for all people is to look at our soul and our soul consciousness. So in looking at all these different things, the spiritual things, the yin and the yang, the, Eden and the fruit, bad and evil, and all of this, understanding that we are totally run by this negative and positive energy. Our life force runs off the negative and positive energy. Our cars run off negative and positive energy. So to be able to embrace those things, to get ourselves running, too much of one thing won't run. If you don't have white, if you don't have black, you can't make gray. If you have white, if you don't have, a masculine and feminine, you can't have that childlike. So here we go to the child, behaviors and the childish behaviors, and being able to, when we heal, we become inhibited and uninhibited again. As children, we're uninhibited. We're not worried about this part of the brain that makes us think that embarrassing is a deadly threat. We're not afraid of being embarrassed when we're little kids. In fact, we think everything's funny when we're a little kid, but as we're growing older, we get embarrassed. So sometimes we have to embrace these polarities is all that I'm saying. So in feeding the good algorithms of my mind, as I said, I listen to Deepak Chopra and Alicia Keys, their meditation. And so their meditation today for me, because I'm behind, is on day 5, and it's healing the divided self. So then we go back to this Dunning-Kruger effect. The symptom of that is the us versus them mentality. So it's that masculine and feminine. And when they talk about embracing our feminine, they're not saying it's just women. They're talking about that we all have masculine and feminine qualities in us. So I don't know how this appears in men, how they would describe that. You're welcome to put that in the comments below or message me so I can further on that. But for me, my masculine part of me would be my warrior self. So my warrior self, I'm just going to name 2 of the polarities that I have, 2 of the traits that I have in that would be that I'm a rebel on one part and the other part is strong. So while one would be considered to be good, the other one might be considered to be bad, but they're both good and bad, because you can be too strong and not accept help, which is not a good thing, because that's something that's supposed to, keep going. As you help and you keep helping people, that's part of humanity, because you're able to help people with what you learn. I had people who helped me, so hence I'm able to help people, you see. But if I don't accept help, then that's not good. So that stops this evolution. So, and also being a rebel, sometimes that's good. I need to be able to stand up for myself. But at the same time, I need to be able to not buck things that could be for the highest and best good for everybody. On the other side, my feminine self has the goddess. Now, the goddess wants to express beauty, and you would think that's so great. But also, the goddess also has the quality of vanity. My vanity sometimes has been able to it's kept me clean for 24 years, these kind of things. So it serves a good purpose, but it also could work in a bad way. So all these traits can work in a good and a bad way. So when we can embrace that and acknowledge that, but as humans, sometimes we want to be in denial of the bad things. We want to think, oh, no, 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 and not relate with that. We're going to negate that. So that's going into denial. So when we deny things, they may keep coming back around if it's for our highest and best healing, is all that I'm saying. As looking at the book of some of the Carolyn May's books, looking at the archetypes, I may want to deny that I could relate with one of those archetypes. I may want to deny that I could relate with these prayers, that, oh, I'm past that. But when I really look at it, is I may intellectually want to be past it, but it may be something that I can relate to. So that comes with the observation and not the judgment, and we have to understand that and to be able to identify these things. That's why I'm always talking about identifying these things, because when you can identify one thing, you can identify the other, just like I did in my own polarities, and to honor the good and the bad in all of them, and to be able to channel which one I need at the certain time. Now, as long as we're on earth, we're always going to have stuff to work on. We're going to continue breathing. We're going to continue eating. We're going to continue staying in the flow. Hopefully, we're going to be mindful of what we're eating and drinking and how much of that we're eating and drinking so that we can remain healthy. We're going to remain mindful of the healing process. And so right now we're going into a full moon. I'm going to express that. That's kind of the feminine. And now getting into really deep into the soul part, so that I'm not taking up too much more of your time, is that when we look at the feminine and the moon, the Luna, I like the triqueta feminine, is that there's the Mother Earth, which gives us our nurturing and our sustenance. She's also very graceful, at the same time. She grows. She promotes our growth, by our regenerated rest. And then, whatever your feminine archetype is, and I encourage a lot of women to get that, because on the dogmatic side of religion is that God was expressed as male, so to get your feminine archetype, or whoever you want to embody. And for me, that's, Mary, and Mary teaches us that grace and to be comfortable in our own skin. And then we go up to Luna, and Luna's like our nightlight, man. She is watching over us in the night while we sleep, and guarding us, in a sense. And so we can look at these different aspects whatever way we want to. That's just my way of looking at it. So that's the feminine for me, how that expresses that it's in our, the earth, Mother Earth. It's in the feminine deities, is knowing that God lives in me. And I lived in that dogmatic life when they would say you're in the image and likeness, and I had boobies, it'd be like, and they had a beard. It'd be like, what, telling me I come from a rib, So the tapes were like, you're less than then. And I'm not saying that's the way I was supposed to interpret it, but that's the way that it was interpreted. So this is what I mean by the mind, and how we have to gauge what's true and what's not true, and how we can find our divine connection, and to know that it's not bad to be able to identify some masculine qualities, and it's not bad to be able to identify some feminine qualities. And this is how we create our childlike behavior. Because this childlike behavior, once we do this healing work, and a lot of this healing work, first off, we start off with praying. Praying's kind of like magic. You can do the request. I pray even with candles. It's kind of like those birthday cake prayers. Is that? But I'm praying for more people. I have 3 candles. And I've stated that before. So I'm praying, but then I have to meditate. We have to be quiet and listen for the answers to our prayers. This is the thing, is oftentimes people reach out to God and say, God, I want to get to the other side, and we pray about it, but then people get upset with God too, because nothing happens, because they don't put forth the action. They don't put forth the practice and development that we need to make these things come true. And we have to understand that, one of my candles is just for me to pray for other people. And I realize that I may be praying for I've learned to pray for God's will for them, because maybe what we want for them isn't God's will for them. And so some people may get disappointed when their prayers, they may feel like their prayers aren't answered. So if we're praying for whatever the right and divine healing for another person is, and sometimes right and divine order doesn't look the way that we want it to look, So having that faith extends even when things are dark. We want to have faith when everything seems to be right and light and going our way, but when it's dark and dim and, it's not, then people kind of want to not have faith, and they want to take it personal, either that God's mad at them or what have you. And, nothing, it's not personal. It's just part of our evolution, and we don't know why everything happens. We can question it, we can analyze it, we can figure it out, and it's through getting quiet. The next thing I learned was to do the tapping, because we do get frustrated. So I've learned that this consciousness, which is my God, which is the sun and the moon, lives inside of me. So the tapping is that I don't understand why I'm so frustrated about this. I wish I wasn't frustrated about this. I know that there's a solution to this. I just get so upset that I can't figure out what the solution is. I really wish I knew what the solution was. I don't know why I'm not doing it, but I am going to look for the solution. I know that I have the solution in me. It's really in me, and I know it, and I'm going to find the solution. The solution is this. So we tap, and then we start coming up with these things too. This is after we pray, meditate, we start learning this tapping process, because we're always on this continual journey to grow our relationship with consciousness. There's not this plateau that we get to. That's on the arrogance side, and thinking that we know things that, because we always are open to grow. So then now I've even started chanting, and what I realize about the chanting is it gives me my voice and my energy, and even, it's kind of cool that I'm not trying to influence anything by my chanting, but an energy level. It's sound healing, so it's bringing forth an energy level. Because just like we attract those things we need to heal from, once we heal from those things, we start seeing other things. And when I started chanting, what I started remembering, and the childlike behavior, is I remember as a little kid, the swing sets that were metal, and my brothers and I used to get up on these swing sets, and inevitably the caps on these swing sets would always fall off, right? So we would stand on it had an A-frame, and then there's this metal part, and we would stand up there and be yelling things into the swing set. Just all kinds of sounds. We probably drove the neighbors crazy. They probably wished we would shut up. But we were uninhibited, and we knew the sounds, But as adults, we get told to be quiet. We get told to shut up. We get told this and that. And so we start losing our voice, and our voice is our gift, And so being able to recognize all these divine gifts that we have and how we're connected, and to be able to give appreciation. So now with this full moon and eclipse energy, some of the things that I realize within myself that may be negative, that I may be acting as a repulsed at this other behavior. There's attraction and repulsion. So maybe if somebody has expressed a behavior of control, if I'm, thinking that they're controlling, and maybe they are. We work with people who are controlling. We live with people who have this control type of energy to them. We have to ask ourselves, what is the most divine? What is the best outcome for all people involved? And when we look at that, we can look at the gauging once again about, is it true? When somebody's not expressing themselves or asking you to do something in the way that you would want to be asked to do, maybe it would come off as controlling. We automatically know that their dialogue is more of a negative dialogue, and so sometimes we want to dig our heels in and not do what they want us to do, hence this repulsion energy to their repulsion energy, right? To their negative. So we may want to do that. So them projecting their negative energy onto us, I've talked about this before, is accepting it. Do we have to accept it? If somebody's being negative and they ask me to do something, what I'm trying to learn is, instead of digging my heels in, and most of the time I'm pretty good about not doing that, but I've caught myself here recently because we are coming upon the full moon and this full moon energy. I used to go into my life coach, back in the day, and I would tell her, I'm PMSing because the moon is so powerful and directly related to so many things in our lives. It's that, Even our menstrual cycles, and even that has menstrual cycles. So how did we get the menstrual cycle? How do these things get called? Anyway, so I would go in and say, well, I'm PMSing, and I'd be bitchy about certain things. And then she asked me, what would it be like if you weren't PMSing? And this was for me to learn that inner validation of myself, because this is the problem, is a lot of people are looking for, in certain times, looking for outer validation. I'm so grateful that she taught me to look at that. Sometimes we do need somebody to teach us to look at these different things. So what I realized was that some of the things I got upset about might be valid, to learn to communicate them in a more positive way, because I could become negative, come off negative in my wounded parts of me. So sometimes people may come off that way. So what I'm releasing to the moon is that I don't have to repulse, that when I can gauge myself, if somebody's coming at me negative, not to take that negativity on, but to serve the highest good for everybody involved. And if they are coming off negative for me to do something, if the thing needs to be done and it's going to serve the highest good, and I have the time and the energy and the way to do it, then I can do it if it's a reasonable request or a reasonable kind of hint or whatever, because there's a lot of people right now that are struggling, So let's try to be kind. Let's try to channel these things, whether we want to do things about, is it true? Is there negative energy? Do I know that they're going to think and react this way? And if I react and think a different way, maybe another person will. Maybe they won't. But the thing is to stay true to ourselves and our cells and our soul, and then we're going to be right in divine alignment with everything else on the outside. So I hope that this video has been helpful and that you're able to get something. I'm sorry it still turned out longer than I wanted it to be. I do value your time, and so I thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday. And I wish you much love and peace, and I'll see you later. Thank you so much.